Let's start with a bubbly. Well, not a true bubbly, but you know what I mean. This is the best flavor of AHA. If you think differently, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. This one is the best one. So good. I have a lot that I want to chat about today, and I would like to create space on the internet for people who are currently going through the conception process. And I say that because we talk about infertility, we talk about pregnancy, we talk about early pregnancy, we talk about postpartum, we talk about so many different things, but what we don't talk about is conceiving. Like the process of conception, we don't talk about it unless it is labeled as the conception during infertility. And for people who are going through the conception process, they often don't share that information with anyone. So they're actually not getting advice and recommendations, and they are not, they don't have anyone to share that journey with. And I want to be that big sister for y'all. If you are beginning the conception process and you feel a little bit lost and you feel a bit overwhelmed, let's do it together. Because I am also traveling through that process, and I want us to be able to talk about it and support each other through it. I just want to create space on the internet for those who are trying to conceive, whether it has been 1 month or it has been multiple years. There is so much within the process of conception that I think people who either conceived super fast and super easily, or people who have never been through the process don't understand. And so yeah, there's a lot that I want to talk about kind of surrounding that topic today. If this is your first time seeing my face, my name is Sydney. I'm a perinatal athletic therapist and postnatal fitness specialist, and I am currently TTC, or trying to conceive, if you don't know what that means. I am posting videos about my process from IUD removal, and I'm hoping to just carry right through until postpartum and early motherhood and all of those kinds of things. And I want to be as real and as raw and as honest and share my personal feelings and some of my education with you guys and all of those kinds of things through this process. On this page, I also talk about health and wellness. We talk about pregnancy, exercise, postpartum recovery, all of those good things. So if any of those things resonate with you, or if you're kind of traveling in any of those journeys as well, please subscribe and stick around and hang out. Today, I would like to talk about all the things about conception that I have realized that no one tells you, that no one talks about. Like I said, if you're going through the process of conception, typically you don't tell anyone. That's kind of just like the westernized, like, don't tell anyone, because right away they're like, oh, you're trying currently? And then every time they see you, they're like, so anything? You got anything to share? You got any information you want to share? So I completely understand why people don't tell anyone, because it is quite overwhelming when people are asking constantly. There is so much that's a part of this process that is very taxing emotionally and physically and in your relationship and so many different things. To start off, the first thing that no one tells you about conception is how much wait time there is. Honestly, I wish someone would have just told me, be prepared to be extremely impatient and to wait forever. Because that's what it feels like. It honestly feels like, okay, this is how the process goes. So you have your period, right? You wait for your period to be over. Then you wait until you are fertile, or you kind of wait until you start exercising. We're just going to call it exercising for the sake of this video so that the internet police don't come and get me. So you wait until you start exercising. Then you exercise. Then you wait. You wait another 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 weeks until either your period comes or your period doesn't come, or you take a test or whatever. Like there is so much time that you spend waiting, and I wish someone honestly would have been so upfront with me and just been like, you're gonna wait forever and it's gonna feel like forever every single month. We are in month 3 of trying to conceive. And prior to beginning the process of trying to conceive and actually trying to conceive, we had to wait almost 3 months so that I could get my IUD out. So it has felt like a good 6 months of just waiting, which is so frustrating being someone who is so impatient like me. I am very, very impatient. So every waiting period is like, I want to pull my hair out. It is so frustrating. So that's the first thing that no one tells you, is just be prepared to wait. Now this brings me to my next point. If you have an irregular cycle, be prepared to potentially wait even longer. When I say that, I mean, you could, especially after ending birth control or getting an IUD out, which is birth control, but you know what I mean. Any of those big hormonal changes, you don't know what your cycle is going to be like. So my past 2 cycles have been 40 days. And if you're going based off of an app, if you're tracking in an app or anything like that, it's going to tell you it's time to take a pregnancy test. And so you're going to be like, okay, my app's telling me I'm supposed to take a pregnancy test, so why wouldn't I, right? That's what the app is telling me. When in reality, that can actually frustrate you even more. Been there, done that a couple times. Conceiving with an irregular cycle essentially means this. When your period is done and you don't know 100% when exactly you ovulate, for 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to be exercising pretty much every other day because you don't 100% know when you are ovulating unless you take ovulation tests, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But your cycle could be super long like mine. It could be that 40 days, or it could be super short. And just be prepared for kind of anything in between. And so essentially what we did last month is, as soon as I was done my period, we exercised every 2 or 3 days for 2 weeks. Then my period didn't come for another 2 weeks after that. It was like, I was on day 39. I had taken 3 pregnancy tests at that point. They were all negative. And I'm like, where the heck is my period and why isn't it here yet? Yeah. So just be prepared that it could kind of be all over the place. This brings me to my next point. I just talked about ovulation tests. There are so many things that you can track, but it doesn't mean you have to track them. You can track cervical mucus, you can track your basal body temperature, you can track your ovulation, you can track the day of the cycle that you're in, you can track your symptoms. There are so many things you can track, and I feel like tracking all of them, if you are not in a state of infertility is kind of gauged based off of how long you've been trying and haven't been successful with conception. So that's typically at about a year. So up until that year point, don't worry about tracking everything. If you are going through the process of infertility treatments, they will want you to track those things so that they can determine exactly what's happening in your cycle. Prior to that time, you don't need to track it. Just know when your period ends, know approximately how long your cycle is if it's a little bit more regular, and exercise based off of that. The reality is, when you track so many different things, it can actually heighten anxiety. And for myself, so I was taking ovulation tests and I was never getting a positive. And so for me, that just that first of all made me doubt my body. And second of all, made me really anxious to think like, what the heck? I'm not ovulating. Why am I not ovulating? I don't understand. And when it came down to it, because my cycle was 40 days long, I was just ovulating later. Like I was taking ovulation tests when my app was telling me to, and like kind of based off of that golden rule, like should be around day 14 to 16. And I just felt awful about myself. I wasn't getting any positive tests. I decided to then take my temperature, and I was like, I feel like this isn't accurate. Like, I was just having such a hard time with it. And so this month, not tracking anything, literally just, I know which day of my cycle I'm on. I'm not tracking anything. I'm not assuming that my app is correct when it comes to, my ovulation date. I'm just kind of using that as a benchmark, and we're going from there. The next thing I want to talk about is kind of unavoidable. It's just something that I wish people would have told me about, and that is the concept of symptom spotting. When you are trying to conceive and you are waiting for your period to come, or you're waiting to take a pregnancy test, every single symptom you have, you're going to be like, is this a pregnancy symptom? Or what is this? Like, every time I had a food aversion or I didn't want to eat something, I was like, is this pregnancy? Is this what pregnancy's like? I was nauseous one day and I was like, I'm definitely pregnant. Like, you will symptom spot like crazy. And the problem is, a lot of early pregnancy symptoms are exactly the same as PMS symptoms. So there's honestly, like, there aren't a whole lot of differences when it comes to it. So keep that in mind kind of as you go through this process, in the sense that when you are feeling things, it could be just because you are so hyper aware of the things that you are feeling. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're pregnant, because I got my hopes up 2 months in a row. I was like, definitely pregnant. I can absolutely, I know based off these symptoms that I'm pregnant. And then I got a negative test and I was like, oh, okay, never mind. Like, it's an emotional roller coaster, and just assume that you will assume that you're pregnant. I just wish someone would have told me that and just been transparent about, like, yeah, you're gonna think that you're pregnant. Thing I want to talk about is how expensive pregnancy and ovulation tests are. Listen, when I went to the store to buy pregnancy and ovulation tests, I just went to Shoppers and Superstore, like grocery stores. They don't have them at Freshco, apparently. I looked for one there. But pregnancy tests are not cheap. Ovulation tests are also not cheap. Here's the thing. These strips are the same in all of them. The strips in a pregnancy test are just testing for a hormone. They're testing for HCG. And if you get a $20 test versus a $2 test, it's the same dang strip in there. Stop spending $20 on every pregnancy test that you take. These strips work just as well. If you'd like, this is what I'm going to do this time around. So at first I was buying expensive tests because I didn't know. First of all, I didn't even know that Dollarama had pregnancy tests, but I was buying the expensive ones, and I ended up taking multiple pregnancy tests because my cycle was so long and I was waiting so long for my period to come. And then someone was like, yeah, just get the dollar store ones. They're just as good. So take it from your big sis over here. Don't spend so much money on pregnancy tests. It's not worth it. If you have been going through it for a while, if you are planning to take an ovulation test every month or multiple times, just buy like the boxes of the strips off of Amazon. Don't bother going to the store and buying one individual test each time. Just get the cheaper ones. So essentially what happens is HCG doubles every day within the first, I forget how long it is, of pregnancy. And so if you test earlier and you get a really faint line or it doesn't show up, over the next couple of days, like basically the later you test, the more accurate it's going to be. But regardless of which kind of test you use, that applies. So just stop spending so much money on pregnancy tests. I wish someone would have told me that. I wish someone would have been like, no, that's stupid. Just go to the dollar store and get a few tests. And I wish someone would have told me how emotionally taxing it can be to get a negative test every month. Even if you've only been trying for 2 months, if you are ready to have a baby and you are trying to conceive, baby is all that you think about. Like having a baby and conceiving a child and being pregnant and preparing to have a child, like that is the only thing that's on your mind. And if you get a negative test, it can be so emotionally draining, and especially going through that process multiple times, it is a very emotional process. And I wish that someone would have shared that with me as well. Just the fact that it is an emotional process, regardless of if you are past that 1 year mark and you are entering the world of infertility treatments and all those kinds of things. It can still be really hard before then. And I want you all to recognize that. And I don't want to overshadow or make it seem like infertility is less than or anything like that. It is so important to talk about those things too. But it's also okay to feel really, really frustrated during this process, even if you've only been doing it for a couple months. And I think that that is something that we also need to talk about a bit more, is just, even though someone else might be going through infertility, it doesn't make your process any less important, and it's still your process. So however you feel throughout that process is 100% valid, and you do not have to hide that, and you don't have to downplay that. If you're frustrated, be frustrated. It's okay. Everyone's feelings are valid within this process, no matter if you've been trying to conceive for 1 month or if you've been trying to conceive for years. Everyone's emotions are valid and everyone's feelings are valid. And we don't need to hide them. We don't need to shy away from sharing them. And I just think it's important that we share this with each other and talk about it with each other, because it can feel super lonely. And especially those people who have gone through it for a longer period of time, they may have some really great tips for us to use, especially when it comes to like emotional connection with your partner, which can change drastically throughout the time that you're conceiving. Just things like that. I think let's share about it more. Let's talk about it more, and go through this process together, because it doesn't have to be lonely. It doesn't have to feel like we're going through it by ourselves. There needs to be more support when it comes to the process of conception, because there's so much support in pregnancy, and everybody talks about early pregnancy and everybody talks about, all of those kinds of things, but no one talks about conception. So here I am talking about it, and I hope that if you are starting the process of conception, or if you haven't started yet but you're preparing to, I hope that this kind of gives you a little bit of information as to kind of what to expect. And I will share more about my personal process of conception a little bit later, maybe once we've conceived. But I just think it's important for us to talk about it. So I hope that this was helpful. And if you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I'd love to hear from you guys. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.